2, verse 19, which is a very curious passage. So are we rolling? So 1 Kings 22:19, a very curious and relatively unknown passage, one that's kind of weird and strange. It's showing you a side of heaven that we typically don't see and we don't think about. And it's what's going on with God and his angels. Because we're going to find this hierarchy. Last week we started on angelology. And what did we cover last week? We essentially covered what their nature's like. The idea that they're spiritual, that they're immaterial, that they're not necessarily a being with wings and a halo. They're actually invisible, but they can manifest themselves in certain ways. So sometimes they manifest themselves as a man, like they did at the tomb of Jesus, and other times around the throne they manifest themselves as beings with wings, all kinds of different stuff. So don't think of an angel in their essence as corporal like us with a body, because it's not like that. They are an immaterial spirit. They are invisible, but they can reveal themselves in a bunch of different ways. And we found out that, what is a demon? A demon is nothing more than a fallen angel. It's an angel that fell from grace and became evil. Same being. There's not a lick of difference between an angel and a demon other than their morality. That's it. That's it. So think about this. If an angel can manifest themselves so man can see them, that means a demon can too. And we'll get into this a little bit in demonology, but the world misinterprets demon sightings as something, I believe. I believe you can explain ghost sightings and alien sightings and stuff like that as demonic activity. That would be how the Bible would interpret that. See, the world who rejects the Bible sees these hauntings and poltergeists and stuff like that, and they do one of two things. They either write it off as fake, like, that ain't real, that's just a myth, or they misinterpret it as a disembodied spirit of some dead guy. Nah, it ain't a disembodied spirit. Biblically, it's demonic. I mean, that's what it comes down to. You're seeing demonic activity around you. So, but we'll get into that a little later. Today, we're going to be getting into the angelic hierarchy, the idea that the angelic realm, that unseen realm, has a structure to it, because it's kind of like a governmental structure that we'll be seeing. So if you look at 1 Kings 22:19, what this is cool, I'm not going to read the whole passage because it would take too long, but this is a scene in heaven, and what essentially is happening is, we'll read verse 19 here, and I'll give you the rest of the passage. It says, Then Micaiah, which is one of the prophets in the Old Testament, said, Therefore hear the word of the Lord. And I saw the Lord sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven standing by on his right hand and on his left. So you have the throne room, and you have the angels surrounding the throne. And if you kept on reading in 1 Kings 22, essentially what God is doing is he's having a meeting with his angelic council. And he's talking to both the angels and the demons, because demons have access to heaven, believe it or not. Think about Job chapter 1. Satan came before God and said, and God asked him, Have you considered my servant Satan? He's blameless. And you know, God sent Satan down, and Satan inflicted Job with the boils, as we know. But that all happened in heaven. So the demonic realm, as weird as it sounds, has access to the throne room, so they're here. And what God is doing is he's in this passage, if you read 1 Kings 22, he's having like a meeting with his angelic council. And he's asking them who will go down, in his sovereignty, he's asking who will go down and deceive King Ahab into going into battle. Because that's what he does. You know, the demons were chomping at the bit to go down and wreak havoc, and God's finally giving them their chance. You know, it's like, all right, I'm going to give you all the ability to do what you do. Who's going to step up and take this job? And one demon went down, and it said he became a lying spirit in the mouth of many of King Ahab's prophets. Isn't that interesting? One demon infiltrated many prophets. So whenever you have all these false prophets out there running around the church today, It might not necessarily mean you got a bunch of demons working. It could be one demon infiltrating all of them. I mean, it's just how it works. But as you can see here, here's the scene. You've got all these hosts of heaven. Host means an army. That's what the Hebrew word would mean. An army of heaven standing by on God's right hand and on his left. So this army, since it's a host, that's where we get the idea of a hierarchy, because armies and military have structure to it. You know, you have generals and captains and lieutenants and sergeants and everything else. So there's a hierarchy. There's a structure, and the angelic realm is the same way. So we're going to kind of look at how is the hierarchy and the structure set up in the angelic realm, but more importantly, how does it apply to us? Why is it practical? And it is in many ways. So to understand the work of the angelic realm, we need to understand their hierarchy and structure. The angelic realm consists of, number one, we got a couple categories of angels, okay? And the first category, most of y'all have probably heard of, they're called the cherubim. You've got cherubim. Cherubs are like the most common angelic being that you could ever think of. Like even in mythology, every single, well, not every single, but most ancient cultures had, angels and had cherubs. Like, for instance, in the ancient Greek culture, there was a very well-known cherub. And he's the one who would go around shooting with arrows on Valentine's Day, right? What was his name? Boy, I'm actually drawing a blank. Yeah, Cupid. He was called a cherub. So that's the idea. But we get it from the Bible because there's cherub. Now, the first mention of cherub is in Genesis 3:24, and what's cool about this is every single time you see a cherubim is plural. Cherubim means more than one. So singular would be cherub. Cherubim is plural, which means you have more than one. These a cherubim or a cherub are a guardian, a warrior angels. They're the warrior angels. They're the ones who fight. They're the ones who actually take up arms. They're the ones who actually go in by force.
So Cupid is a warrior?
Well, according to them. But biblically, they're a warrior. Because look, after Adam and Eve fell, what did God do? So he drove out the man out of the Garden of Eden, and he placed cherubim at the east of the Garden of Eden, and a flaming sword which turned every way to guard the way to the tree of life. How many angels did he put? We don't know. It was more than one. He could have had a whole army of cherubim at the east gate, because he don't qualify how many. All we know is it's plural. He had more than one there, and we miss that. We think of it as being one angel wielding a sword. No, there's more than one here. He's got multiple. There could be 50 there, all we know. All the text says is there's cherubim. So, but what is his duty? To guard the entrance to the tree of life. Because that tree of life would have locked a man into that sinful state. So God was using his angelic forces, his guards, to guard the way to the Garden of Eden. But we see it a little bit more in Exodus chapter 25, 18 through 20. Look at how they made the Ark of the Covenant. What was the Ark of the Covenant? The Ark of the Covenant was that box that they had in the most holy place of the temple and the tabernacle, and inside that box, Moses put the Ten Commandments and a jar of manna and Aaron's rod inside that box, and that box symbolized God's presence to Israel. That box, the lid of that box was called the mercy seat, and the mercy seat was like God's throne. So God's presence, his glory, would come down and hover over the mercy seat, and that acted like his throne for his presence within Israel in the holiest place of the temple. So think of the box like that, but look at how they describe the box. And you shall make two cherubim of gold, of hammered work you shall make them, and at the two ends of the mercy seat. So the lid of that Ark of the Covenant, if you've seen the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark with Indiana Jones, you've seen the the Ark of the Covenant, right? It's the box with the two angels up on top of it. You got the two angels guarding God's throne. That's the idea there. The two cherubs guarding the two ends of the mercy seat. Make one cherub at one end and another cherub at the other end, and you shall make the cherubim at the two ends of it at one piece with the mercy seat. And the cherubs shall stretch their wings above, covering the mercy seat with their wings, and they shall face one another. The faces of the cherubs shall be toward the mercy seat. So you could think, I should have gotten a picture of the box, but you'd have the box and both cherubs would have been facing each other, and they'd have been stretching their wings out that way, touching their wings together, and their wings would have been guarding the mercy seat or the throne of God. See, it's a depiction of guardianship. That's like God's secret service, if you will, right? It's like, so you got these cherubs being guards.
Angels.
Yep. Well, we're going to get into that here in a little bit. So 1 Samuel 4:4. Right here, this is interesting because this is describing God, but look at how Samuel describes God. So the people sent to Shiloh that they might bring from there the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord of Hosts. The Lord of Hosts is the Lord of the angelic armies, who dwells between the cherubim. And the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the Ark of the Covenant of God. So where does God? He dwells between the cherubim on his throne of the Ark of the Covenant. That's the idea. So when you get these doctrines, you can kind of see, what do the angels do and what is the symbolism in the temple and in the tabernacle. You've got these cherubim who guard. Now, it's not like God needs a guardian angel. It's not that point. God's the king, and any king has his soldiers, and the cherubim are his soldiers. That's the idea. Those are the armies of God that do his work. So in that first passage we saw in 1 Kings 22:19, you had the host of heaven surrounding by the throne, and he says, who will go down and be a deceiving spirit? Those might have been cherubim, but there's a second type of angel that we'll get into here in a second that they could have been too. But look at Ezekiel chapter 10. This is a longer passage, but this is very interesting. This is right before Israel was carried off into captivity in Babylon. If you know, after King Solomon, in about 900 BC, there's a civil war, and Israel was split into a northern kingdom and a southern kingdom. The northern 10 tribes formed what was called the nation of Israel, but then the tribes of Judah and Benjamin formed the nation of Judah. And the nation of Judah is where all of King David's descendants served in as king, and that's where Jesus came from, was King David. But in the southern kingdom, you had about, I think, 15 different kings, and only 8 of them were good kings. The rest of them were evil, and it got to the point that God had to punish the southern kingdom in 586 BC by hauling them off to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar came in, and in 3 different deportations, hauled everyone off and destroyed the city. And the books of Daniel and Esther take place in Babylon and Persia. Those are during the deportation. Well, this is right before that deportation in 586 BC, and this is what's curious about that. Look at what's going on in the temple. He said, and this is Ezekiel speaking, and I, first person Ezekiel speaking, looked, and there in the firmament that was above the head of the cherubim, there appeared something like a sapphire stone, having the appearance of the likeness of a throne. So he's in the Holy of Holies, and you got the Ark of the Covenant sitting there, and above the cherubim, he had this vision of a throne. And he spoke to the man clothed in linen. And who would be a man clothed in linen? We're getting to that a little later, but that's one of those angelic manifestations. Probably a cherubim, an actual cherubim manifests themselves, look like a man, and started speaking to Ezekiel here. Now look at what he said. And he said, go in among the wheels under the cherub, fill your hands with coals of fire from among the cherubim, and scatter them over the city. And and he went in as a watch. So he told him to do this weird, and this is a vision. He said, underneath this throne, it was on wheels, and God was on the throne or something. And he said, go in and grab some coals from God's altar and throw them on the city, symbolically. And he went in as a watch. Now the cherubim were standing on the south side of the temple when the man went in, and the cloud filled the inner court. So that cloud was God's presence. And the glory of the Lord went up from the cherubim and passed over the threshold of the temple. And the house was filled with the cloud. So the temple was filled with the cloud, and the court was filled with the brightness of God's glory. And the sound of the wings of the cherubim was heard even in the outer court, like the voice of the Almighty God when he speaks. Now, this is a vision that, this wasn't actually happening. This was a vision that Ezekiel was seeing, so mind you that. Then it happened when he commanded the man clothed in linen, saying, take fire from among the wheels, from among the cherubim, that he went in and stood beside the wheels. Because remember, this throne that's above the mercy seat it's on wheels, so that's what he's describing there. And the cherub stretched out his hand from above the cherubim to the fire that was among the cherubim, and took some of it and put it in the hands of the man clothed with linen. And he took it and went out. And the cherubim appeared to have the form of a man's hand under his wings. This is confusing, I know, but the point is if you keep on reading, what's happening is, I'm going to summarize it. The cherubim is escorting God's glory out of the temple and out of the city. And what that's symbolizing is God is departing Israel, because what's getting ready to come? The Babylonians are getting ready to come. God is forsaking his people. But what was going on here? The cherubim were escorting God. They were escorting God out. And if you read Ezekiel 10, that is the scene that is being portrayed here. And you know what's curious about that? Right before Jesus' execution, right before his crucifixion, he went and cleansed the temple. And after he cleansed the temple, that was what set the Pharisees against him. And when they arrested Jesus and took him to the Sanhedrin in the temple to try him, when they led him out to the crucifixion, guess what route he took? The same route. You can see the route that Jesus took out of the temple to go get crucified, and you can compare it to Ezekiel chapter 10. And Jesus took the same route that the glory of the Lord did when it left the temple before the Babylonian captivity. It was the same route out of the temple and out of the city. So again, this foreshadowed something that was coming later. So when Jesus was led out to be crucified, the gospel writers are saying, just like in Ezekiel 10, when the glory of the Lord departed the temple, the glory of the Lord is departing the temple. You're getting ready to crucify your Lord. So you're getting ready to kill God, which is really, really cool. But those are cherubim, as you can see. I gave you several examples of how cherubs are like these guardian warrior angels that are God's angelic army. They're his angels. They're his military. But there's a second type of angel, and it's only mentioned once in Scripture. Well, one passage, 2 verses, and they're seraphim. Many people have never heard of a seraphim, but that's found in Isaiah 6, and this is where our song came from today. In the year that this is prophet Isaiah's calling to the ministry, and he saw a vision of God's throne room. And look at how Isaiah describes it. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting on a throne. Okay? And high and lifted up. So his throne is up on steps. He's high and lifted up. He's exalted. And the train of his robe filled the temple. So you had this long royal robe that filled the temple. And above it, above the throne, stood seraphim. That's plural for a seraph. It's a type of angel, a seraphim. Each had 6 wings. With 2 he covered his face, with 2 he covered his feet, with 2 he flew. So with the two that covers his face, that's like hiding his face from God because he can't look upon God because God's so holy. And two that covered his feet, that was guarding, guarding his feet and guarding his path. And with two he flew. Okay. And one cried to another and said, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory." And the posts of the door were shaken by the voice of him who cried out, and the house was filled with smoke. Boy, sounds familiar, doesn't it? This is what's going on in the temple, guys. But are they in the temple now? They're in the throne room of heaven. It's a similar thing. The glory of the Lord is in heaven, and the angels are crying, and the house is filled with smoke and all kinds of other stuff. So I said, "Woe is me, for I am undone, because I'm a man of unclean lips, for I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips, for my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts." But you have seraphim. But then one of the seraphim flew to me, having in his hand a live coal, which he taken with the tongs from the altar. And we know that he cleanses Isaiah's lips and sends them out into the ministry. Well, these seraphim are interesting because I didn't read the whole thing, but when you look at the next one, seraphim are worshiping angels. These are the ones singing praises and worshiping around the throne of God. And the word seraphim or seraph means burning or fiery. So their appearance is like fire. They glow. They look like they're on fire. It's one of those things. That's how they manifest themselves, and that's showing the justice and the glory of God as they sing and as they worship God and everything. John saw a similar vision in the book of Revelation, but remember, angels are immaterial. They're invisible, so they can manifest themselves in different ways, as we learned. So how did they manifest themselves in the book of John, in the book of Revelation? Because in Isaiah, they manifest themselves as this fiery being. In Revelation, they manifested themselves a little differently. And look at how they did it. For the four living creatures, each had 6 wings, were full of eyes around and within, and they did not rest day or night, saying, "Holy, holy, holy, Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come." There's where the lyrics of the song came from. You know? So, again, you got these seraphim that worship and sing praises to God. How does this apply to us, guys? Well, we're going to get into how this applies to us here in just a second as we go through their ranks. But the angels, as we learned last week, what are their primary function? Their primary function are ministering spirits for the church. See, last week we learned that when we fell into sin, before we fell into sin, man had dominion and authority over the angels. But when we sinned, we were put under the angels in rank until we get saved, and then we're moved back up above them. But once we get saved, the angels become our servants. They become our ministers. They help us. They guard us. They do other things. So to understand the power of that, you want to know that, number one, the cherubs, and we're going to get into this a little bit more under ranks, they're very powerful. They're very, very powerful. So you have an army that is just unbelievable, presiding over the world and presiding over nations and stuff like that. But the seraphim, they're holy as well, but the real application here isn't necessarily in the holy angels. These become very practical when you get into the fallen form of a cherub and a seraphim, which we'll get into in the demonology. Because how do demons attack man? The first way that a demon would attack man would be to possess him, to make him violent, right? To make them violent, make them evil, kill each other, do violence. Which one of these do you think does that? That's probably a fallen cherub, right? A fallen cherub is probably the ones that indwell and possess and cause people to be violent and mean and hateful. But how about your false prophets?
That would be seraphim.
That would be a seraphim. They're not violent. They speak deception. See, so you can kind of get that. So it becomes practical once we get into demonology a little bit. But it's important to know in their holy state, what is their demeanor and their character like? Because that kind of sheds light on the demonic realm a little bit. Right? So let's get to the ranks a little bit, though. Number one, you got the archangel. Anybody know off the top of the, except for my family, anybody know off the top of their head, what is the archangel's name?
Gabriel.
No, it's not.
Oh,
Michael.
Michael.
Yeah.
Michael the archangel. Okay? So let's look at Jude chapter 9. Yet Michael, the archangel, in contending with the devil when he disputed about the body of Moses, dared not to bring an accusation against him, a reviling accusation, but said, "The Lord rebuke you." So what's going on there? If you read the book of Jude, I don't have the context up on the screen, but Moses had just died, and Satan and Michael, the archangel, are fighting over the body of Moses, but yet Michael, the high angel, the archangel, does not dare to fight Satan. Why is that? Ooh, we'll get into that quite a bit more in Satanology. But you got the highest ranking angel, Michael, and he does not dare to bring a reviling accusation that says, "The Lord rebuke you." Why is that? Well, before we get into that, what does the word archangel mean? Well, the word arch comes from the Greek word arche, which means first or beginning. So it's like high ranking. It's the first angel. It's the highest ranking angel. And angel comes from the Greek word angelos, which means messenger. Messenger. So all angels are messengers in some way. So he is the highest ranking angel. That's the idea. In the hierarchy, Michael is the highest ranking angel. He's over the angels. But what's interesting is he's here fighting with Satan. And he doesn't dare bring an accusation against Satan. He has to call on God to rebuke Satan. And why is that?
Because he's the ultimate judge.
Well, because look at, before I get into it, here's another mention of Michael as the archangel. What is he going to do? When the return of the Lord comes, who blows the horn and who shouts when Jesus returns to rescue us? It's not Gabriel. It's Michael, the voice of the archangel. We often think that's Gabriel blowing the horn at the return of Christ. No. Look at verse 16. For the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an archangel, and with the trumpet of God. It's Michael. So that's what's cool here. But why did not Michael, the highest ranking archangel, contend with Satan? Well, let's go to Ezekiel chapter 28, verses 11 through 14, and look at who Satan is. This is recording the fall of Satan, when he fell into sin. And what's going on here is he is rebuking the king of Tyre, because the king of Tyre is indwelled by Satan. So he's comparing the king of Tyre to Satan, saying, "You're just like Satan when he fell." But this gives us insight of what Satan is like and where he fell and where he fell into evil. Look at what the text says. "Moreover, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation for the king of Tyre, and say to him, Thus saith the Lord God, you were," and here he is. He's talking about Satan now. He's comparing him to Satan. So this is describing Satan. "You were the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was your covering, the sardius, topaz, and diamond, beryl, onyx, and jasper, sapphire, turquoise, and emerald with gold. The workmanship of your timbrels and pipes was prepared for you on the day you were created." What's a timbrel and a pipe, guys? Those are musical instruments. That's a tambourine and a flute, which tells you something. Satan was a music. He was good at music before he fell. That's the idea. He's good at music before he fell. Ooh, how does Satan influence people today? Oh, you can kind of see some of the evil music out there. You got a being that might be behind some of it, right? But let's keep on reading. It says, you were the anointed cherub. Satan was not a seraphim. He was a cherub. He was a warrior. You were the anointed cherub. Not a anointed cherub, the anointed cherub. Who covers? Covers what? Covers the mercy seat. He was around the throne. He was one of the ones around the throne. He was one of God's cherubs next to the throne in heaven. You're the one who covers. You know? So he was one of God's right-hand men. But keep on reading. I established you. You were on the holy mountain of God. You walked back and forth in the midst of the stones. And boy, I cut it off, but let me read you the rest of this, because this is important. Gosh, I didn't get the entire verse up there, but I'll read you the rest of this, because this is important. This is good stuff. Ezekiel 28:15, if you wanted to turn there. 28:15, the passage continues. This is why I have a Bible up here. And it says, you were perfect in all of your ways from the day you were created till iniquity was found in you. By the abundance of your trading, you became filled with violence from within, and you sinned. Okay? So what is he saying here? How is Ezekiel describing Satan?
As a fallen angel.
But how high of a ranking of a fallen angel? Guys, Satan's more powerful than Michael. He was the archangel. Satan was the archangel before he fell. Your enemy is the highest ranking angel in existence. See, I just got chills thinking about that. Who are you dealing with? What kind of enemy are you dealing with? Now you understand why he fell. Because in Isaiah, how does Isaiah, we'll get into that here in a second. But look at the second point here. You got the archangel, but you got the messenger angels. That's the second type of angel. Now, when they had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, arise, take the young child and his mother and flee to Egypt. That's talking about the birth of Jesus. Who appeared to him? An angel of the Lord. Not the angel of the Lord, because the angel of the Lord is sitting in the trough right now. He's become incarnate. So this is an angel of the Lord. Because any time you see the angel of the Lord in the Old Testament, guys, that's actually talking about Jesus, believe it or not. We'll get into that later. But that can't be Jesus. It's an angel of the Lord, because Jesus is a little baby. Look at Luke 1:11. Then an angel of the Lord appeared to him, standing on the right side of the altar of incense. And when Zacharias saw him, he was troubled, and fear fell upon him. So an angel of the Lord, a messenger of the Lord, a messenger angel. But the angel said to him, do not be afraid, Zacharias, for your prayer is heard, and your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you shall call his name John the Baptist. But who told him that? A messenger angel, right? And Zacharias said to the angel, how shall I know this? For I'm old and man and advanced in years, right? And the angel answered and said to him, I am Gabriel, is a messenger angel. See, Gabriel's a messenger angel. So we have that. So that's cool. Angel Gabriel sent by God to the city of Galilee. Daniel 8:6. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of the Eula, which is a river, and called and said, Gabriel, make this man understand the vision. He was a messenger angel, right? And yes, while I was speaking in prayer, the man Gabriel, he looked like a man because he manifested as a man, but he was an angel. So we see that. So you have messenger angels. But then you have that, I can't read all this, but you got the National Angelic Guard. What this verse is saying is in the 3rd year of King Cyrus, the king of Persia, a message was revealed to Daniel. And what happened is, if you read through this passage, I'm not going to read it at the same time, but I'm going to paint the picture for you. But what essentially happens is Daniel is, and I'm almost done, Kevin. Daniel's down here, and what's happening is Gabriel shows up with a message because he's the messenger angel, and he said, I had trouble getting to you because this person who the Bible perceives as a person, and I'll show it to you. This is what's cool about this, is if you read through it, he said, the prince of Persia withstood me between heaven and earth. So the prince of Persia is a demon, because a prince is, demons and angels are called princes every now and then. So he said, I was trying to get to you with this message, but a demonic force, the demon over Persia, stopped me and hindered me, and I had to call upon who to come and rescue me. Look at the text here. Let me go ahead and read it because this is really cool. In the third year of King Cyrus, king of Persia, a message was revealed to Daniel, whose name was called Belteshazzar. The message was true, but the appointed time was long, and he understood the message and had understanding of the vision. In those days, I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. I ate no pleasant food, no meat or wine came into my mouth, nor did I anoint myself at all till 3 whole weeks were fulfilled. Now on the 24th day of the first month, as I was by the side of the great river, that is the Tigris, I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose waist was girded with gold of Uphaz. His body was like beryl, his face like the appearance of lightning, and his eyes like torches of fire. Remember, these are similes. He's saying like. He's describing what they look like. His arms and feet like burnished bronze in color, and the sound of his words like the voice of a multitude. And I, Daniel, alone saw the vision, for the men who were with me did not see the vision, but a great terror fell upon me, so that they fled to hide themselves. So here's Daniel seeing this angelic being coming down, and he's describing him, and he's scared. But verse 8, therefore I was left alone when I saw this great vision, and had no strength remained in me, for my vigor was turned into frailty, and I retained no strength. Yet I heard the sound of his words, and while I heard the sound of his words, I was in deep sleep on my face, with my face on the ground. And suddenly a hand touched me. So the angel touches Daniel, which made me tremble on my knees and on the palms of my hand. And he said to me, O Daniel, man greatly beloved, understand the words I speak to you. This is Gabriel speaking. He's the messenger angel. And stand upright, for I have now been sent to you. And while I was speaking this word to me, I stood trembling. And he said to me, do not fear, Daniel, for from the first day that you sent your heart to understand and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come because of your words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia, that's a demon, withstood me 21 days. And behold, Michael, one of the chief princes, and we know he's the archangel, so he's the highest ranking one, came to help me. For I have been left alone there with the kings of Persia, and I have come to make you understand what will happen to your people in the latter days, for the vision refers to many days yet to come. So what's going on here? Daniel is being visited by Gabriel, and he's saying, hey, I came here to reveal to you what's going to happen in the latter days, but I couldn't get down to you for 21 days because the prince of the kingdom of Persia was withstanding me. I couldn't get through. So who did I have to call to rescue me? I had to call one of the cherubs, which was Michael the archangel. So this is revealing that Michael's a cherub. He was a warrior. So once again, we see that, which is cool. But but then you skip to verse 21. But I tell you what is noted in the scripture truth: no one upholds me against you except Michael, your prince. So you had the demonic prince, which was over Persia, but Michael is Israel's angel, Israel's guardian angel. That's the idea there. And once again, and you were made alive, who were dead in trespasses and sins, in which you will once walk according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit now works in the sons of disobedience. So who's the prince? It's Satan. Michael was fighting Satan again, guys. That's what was going on there in Daniel. So you got the national guards. But lastly, and finally, how about guardian angels? Is that biblical? It's debatable. Here's the verses that we get the idea of guardian angels from. It says, take heed that you do not despise one of these little ones, for I say to you, in heaven their angels always see the face of my Father who is in heaven. So he's saying, don't hurt little children and young believers, because they have angels in heaven that protect them, who see the Father in heaven. So we definitely have angels that protect us, but the question is, guys, are they by our side 24/7, or are they sent when we're in need? Because the conventional idea of a guardian angel is an angel that's always looking over us. But the Bible doesn't really teach that. The Bible doesn't, because here it's saying the angels are in heaven, which implies that they're being sent when we're in need. So we want to think of it biblically. Another verse that they use, and I'm not going to read all this. This is the last verse that we talk about, but this is the last three lines there. No evil shall befall you, nor shall any plague come near your dwelling, for he shall give his angels charge over you to keep you in all your ways. In their hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. That's just a fancy way of saying angels are going to protect you. But again, that doesn't say that they're with you 24/7. They just might be sent to protect you. So do we have guardian angels in the sense that we're taught today, that there's always an angel with us 24/7 protecting us? I don't know. The Bible doesn't clearly teach that. But do angels protect us? Are they at least sent to protect us? Yeah, most definitely they are. But guys, that's the hierarchy of angels. I know I'm about 12 minutes over, but we see what's cool there, because you got cherubim, which are your warriors, and your seraphim, which are your worshipers, and you got the archangel, which is Michael, messenger angels, which includes Gabriel, but then you have the guard angels, which teaches, weirdly, every nation has an angel over that nation, but they also have a demon over that nation. And behind the scenes, there's always this cosmic battle going on behind the scenes. So a lot of the world wars and a lot of the conflicts, that these, just like King Tyre, who was indwelled by Satan, a lot of these national leaders, there's demonic forces and angelic forces in play, and it's causing strife and contention and warring and everything else. And that, it just explains a lot of the chaos in the world. It's spiritual in nature. A lot of it is spiritual in nature, and that's what Daniel 10's teaching. And then, of course, guardian angels, we might not have one following us 24/7, but they certainly come down to protect us. That's for sure. Just like they protect the nation, they protect us individually too. They just might not be with us 24/7. They might be sent, but God will send one to rescue us in times of need. But that's angelology in the hierarchy, the ranks of them. And that's some deep stuff, guys. But Heidi, you weren't in here, but what I showed was this, and this is what's cool. Michael did not fight with Satan, because Ezekiel 28 and Isaiah 14 teaches something. Before Satan fell, he was more powerful than Michael. Satan was the former archangel. So our enemy is the most powerful angel in existence.
So it was,
it's like,
it was Michael and Satan that were protecting the mercy box.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
it would, yeah.
when Satan fell,
Uh-huh.
it ended up being only Michael protecting
Well, that would have been the throne. Well, the real throne up in the bottom, because the mercy seat was the symbol down in the temple of. That's why they had angels on it, because up in heaven you had actual angels around the throne. So the Ark of the Covenant portrayed that with angels on the cover of the
So now
mercy
I'm
seat.
just